So the first step is taking each of the plates. I've cut out the notches on the corners, or the sides I guess, and I'm stretching out with a small rounding hammer to create the petals. I start in the middle of the petal and I work out towards the end, and then I start flaring out the petal on both sides. The gas forge is wide enough I can work two of these at a time. So it's light steel, it heats up very quickly. Light strokes with the hammer. Mostly this is a texturing stroke, but I am trying to stretch and spread and thin out those edges all the way around. Adds for more visual appeal if you have texture on the bar. Second one, same process all the way along. And I have to do all four of these petals on the two pieces, so 8 in total. So this is finishing up the fourth petal on each one of the plates, and the texturing is the same all the way around. You can work it pretty well down to a black heat, and all the texturing is done on the same side as the center punch. So here I'm about to use this dull cold chisel to create the lines on the center of the petals. And this is just working away with the cold chisel, one dent at a time. It's really just drawing on the steel with a chisel. The cold chisel itself is rounded and it is slightly canoe shape so that you can overlap your cut, overlap your dent as you go. And you'll see I'll do a pass along the top, and then I'll go back over, smoothing over the individual indents of it. So this is a little bit of a long process. Obviously, if you have a bunch of these flowers to do, you want to do more of a production run with it. Nice thing is it's cold, it's easy to work. You're not wasting fuel. And it's really just creating an indentation. So here, through the magic of video, I've moved on to the last little bit of the lining. And the idea is not to actually cut the steel, it's just to create an imprint on it with a dull chisel. Sharp chisel, you end up cutting the steel and then you may get splitting down the road, which you want to avoid in this case. So just finishing up the line work here. So now we have to actually shape the petals, and this is a concave dishing tool. It's really just a fairly heavy sheet of steel that's been depressed and then a ring welded around it for support. And I'm going to hammer with the textured side down into the dish, and again I'm still using the rounding hammer for this. I do each individual petal, and it only takes a few moments. But you're trying to create a nice spoon shape to this. Again, you'll be working all four petals evenly, and you'll do the same thing on the second plate. So when I originally made this dishing form, I didn't have a steel dishing form. This piece is probably 30 years old now. dishing form. And what I did is I took that original plate and I hammered it hot into a chunk of firewood. And eventually I got a curve developing that I liked. And then that I could weld onto the ring. So now I'm putting the textured side up and I'm very gently just flattening out that curvature in the center. I'm trying to keep everything nice and curved on the petals, but that center where it gets riveted to the stem, I'm trying to flatten out just a touch. A little bit of wire brushing, clean it up. I repeat exactly the same thing on the second plate, flatten it out, and then I make sure they fit together. And what I'm trying to do is overlap the petals so that there's a full flower developed. So next I'll be working on the stem structure, and this really depends on what your project is. So in this case it's a flat bar. I'll do the beginning of a penny scroll at the tip, curve it around the horn, and then that creates a transition from the square bar, which could be in a grill or something like that, into this floral element. Pretty straightforward with the development of this. First I'm knocking the corners into the bar, creating sort of a popsicle stick shape. Next I'll shoulder at the far edge of the anvil, and this is to try and make a more or less square blob on the end. And part of the work with this is shaping and drawing out the stem portion. Round off the button, round off the penny if it's a penny scroll. And here it's pulling the stem portion out. Drawing the stem out, working square, tapering it down, rounding the corners off. You can see I've pulled it a little bit further here. At this stage it's almost texturing the corners, it's not tons and tons of draw out. So at this point it's ready to develop the penny shape. And again, this is just a convenient transition into the flower on the back side of the flower. Again, I use a rounding hammer, start in the middle, pull everything out to the edge. I do only work one side of this, and that creates a flat portion for the flower to butt up against. So the side that's the hammer striking is the other side of the flower. What's on the anvil attaches to the flower. So a little bit of flattening around the horn on the anvil. Flatten again. And again, if it has to fit a design, you match it up to that. If it's free form, then you just do what looks nice. So for riveting together, I'm riveting it cold. It's a small rivet, it's soft material. First I want to align my lines in the center of the spaces. And if you took care in making them, they all should line up quite nicely. This is a rivet heading tool. It's just a depression in a piece of heavy bar. This one's clamped in the post vise, so it's at a reasonable working height for me. Just getting things aligned, the stem on. I've previously drilled a 1/4-inch hole in all the plates in the stem. So I'm using a ball peen hammer, starting the mushroom, and now I'm switching over to the ball of the ball peen, working it down the reverse of the rivet head. Again, light work, just multiples of it. And you want that peened portion to be well smooth. Again, nothing that's a catch point. And that's the finished flower.